Man, the city was full of people. You couldn't walk anywhere without bumping into somebody. I had never seen that many people in Jerusalem in my life. But you know, there's a reason so many people were there. It was the beginning of the Passover, one of the 3 festivals we were required to attend. And this was the first day of it, and there were so many people. But we loved going to Jerusalem during the festival. We got to go see people, family and friends we hadn't seen in a year. So you can imagine how we felt when we saw them and hugged and embraced. And man, you know what we did all week? We ate, and we ate, and we ate. It was a good time. But I looked as more and more people started coming in. I looked off in the distance. I saw what was kind of a strange sight. See, most people, when they came into Jerusalem, would ride a full-size donkey, or they would ride a camel, or they would be walking. But off in the distance, I saw what looked like a grown man riding a baby donkey. I thought, that was odd. As I looked closer, I saw that he wasn't even using a saddle, that the men around him had put their own clothes on it, and he used that as a saddle. I'm thinking, that was kind of odd. And then people around him were hollering and screaming and shouting and singing. And I couldn't quite understand what they were singing until they got closer to the city gate, and I heard, and this is what they were singing. Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna. And I'm like, wow, that was interesting. Because see, in my language, Hosanna had 2 connotations. It meant blessing to you. So they were singing, blessing to you, this man who's riding on this baby colt, this donkey. And also they were singing, save us. It wasn't until I reached the city gate that I realized who it was. It was Jesus. Jesus. A man many of us had seen perform miracles. A man many of us had seen him went and called somebody out of the grave from the very dead. Jesus. The very person we had saw take a person who couldn't hear and allow them to hear again. Jesus. This man who took very, very few pieces of bread and fish and reproduced it to feed many thousands of people. Jesus. This man who had went up to a blind person, took mud, spit on it, rolled it, and touched that man's eyes so that man could see again. Jesus. This very person who looked out over a stormy sea and said, shut up! And the wind stopped and the storm went away. Jesus. This very person who on more than one time went up to a person who was full of demons and took those demons right out of that person and threw them away so that person could be healed again. Jesus. But you know, as I sit here with you today and I reflect back on that day, I realized something I didn't realize before. And maybe you didn't realize it either until maybe I reflect to you today. And it was this. You know, to me, it seemed like everybody that was present that day when Jesus came to Jerusalem had painted him in a box. It seemed like every person who was there in Jerusalem that day, as Jesus came in, unbeknownst to us would be his very last week there, by the way, had painted him in a box. How, you wonder? Well, the first group of people that come to my mind are his select 12. Those men he specifically went out and personally invited to become his followers. Those men he personally said, come and follow me. Those 12 he personally took his life and put into them. Teaching them personally, going where he went, teaching them, preaching them, even giving them power one time to go out and do what he had been doing. To go out and evangelize and preach the message of God and to bring healing on those who were ill. But they had painted Jesus in a box. How, you ask? When I looked, as they were walking alongside of him as he came in Jerusalem, they looked confused. They didn't seem to understand what was going on. And I think back on their lives, and I think I understand why. See, it never seemed like they really understood Jesus, even though they were personally with him his entire last 3 years of his life. I remember not one instance, not two instances, but 3 3 times, Jesus looked at them and told them about this very day. Look, there's coming a day when I'm going to be handed over. There's coming a day when I'm going to die. But there's also coming a day when I'm going to rise again. And one time they said, no, Jesus, that can't happen. And they looked at Peter and said, Peter, get behind me because you're of Satan. You're trying to stop the plan God has for me. On another time, the disciples said, Jesus, we'll die with you. But he knew very well, no, you won't. No, you won't. When the chips are down, no, you won't. And on another time when he said it, I guess they got tired of hearing what Jesus had to say. They went away and started talking among themselves. I bet they were afraid. See, on more than one occasion, it seemed like people wanted to kill Jesus. One time he had healed this person, and the crowds got angry. They wanted to stone him. They wanted to take him outside the city and kill him. But you know what he did? He parted literally the Red Sea. He just walked in the middle of them and kept going. And nobody touched him. And I bet they were afraid of the religious leaders at that time. Because it seemed like they were always wanting to trick Jesus. They always wanted to come up and ask him a question that would kind of knock him off his theology, kind of knock him off what he believed, kind of prove that he wasn't really of God. I wonder if they were fearful. Wouldn't you be fearful? Think about it. These very Jewish leaders who didn't like you very well, these Jewish leaders who did not like the person you followed very well, these Jewish leaders who talked bad about this person you followed, and now you're going to walk into the very city where their seat of power resides. How would you feel? Man, Jesus, what are we getting into? See, they had painted Jesus in a box. Jesus often led them to places that were unfamiliar to them. Jesus led them to places where they would require to take risks. They didn't, unbeknownst to them, there was coming a day, 5 days from now, when their very lives would be put at risk to see how much they would follow Jesus, and they would fail, even though they didn't know that. But see, they had painted Jesus in a box. Because that very night, when Jesus put them in the most risky place they would ever be, Jesus was arrested. They were going to take him and put him on trial. At first they were ready to fight back, and Jesus said, no, put away the swords. Instead of standing there and following him, what did they do? They ran away. And if that wasn't bad enough, they got to the point where they didn't even want to associate with him. Peter himself, that night, watching Jesus on trial from a distance, not once, not twice, 3 times, told people, no, I do not know this man. No, I'm not associated with this man. And then called down curses. If I know this man, may God strike me dead. You don't think they'd painted Jesus in a box? See, Jesus wasn't doing what they thought Jesus should be doing. They didn't think he was supposed to die. They didn't think following him was being risky business. But it was. And they had painted Jesus in that box. And when their box was broken, they became fearful. And they ran away. I would like to say this was the only group of people that painted Jesus in a box that were present that day when he came in Jerusalem. But no, there were other groups of people there too. They were the Pharisees, the ruling Jewish leaders of the day. These were the people who had taken the laws of the Old Testament given by Moses and interpreted them. Matter of fact, they interpreted them so much they took just a few laws and made over 300 laws that people had to follow. And the rule was that if you broke one of these laws, you broke the entire law. And if you broke the entire law, well, like anything else in life, there were consequences. There were punishments. There were disciplines to be had. But the thing about these Pharisees is it didn't seem they cared what caused the people to not be able to follow the law. See, they seemed to want to sit in high judgment. They wanted to sit on them high places, the judgment seat. And they wanted to look down like a judge would do and go, well, what's the charge? Sorry, you're guilty. Here's your punishment. Not caring what caused the person to break the law. Not caring what the circumstances were. Not even caring that that was a person, but just ready to pass the law. Point was, you broke the law, now you must pay for it. They were very judgmental. And see, they didn't like Jesus very well. You know why? Jesus didn't operate that way. Jesus went to where the people were at. He didn't sit there and cast judgment on them. He went to where they were at. And instead of sitting high and mighty above people saying that he was more worthy than them, I'm more righteous than you, I'm more holy than you, Jesus was willing to get down in the dirt and the muck with the people. He didn't care. He's willing to get dirty to go to be with people. He was willing to get dirty to get down and build relationships with people. He was getting down with people to get to understand people, to understand what caused them to be that way. And because of that, people began to turn away from the power and authority of the Pharisees and began to listen and follow Jesus. So the Pharisees were jealous. They were angry. This man has to be stopped. We have to do something about this. This can't happen. See, they knew the prophecy about the Messiah. They knew the Old Testament. They knew the prophets. But they were looking for a Messiah who would come and be just like them. Ready to pass judgment. Ready to throw the discipline on you. And ready to push you to the side. And when Jesus was not that type of Messiah, he broke their box. And they plotted to kill him. And we know, really, they were the impetus. They were the spark that started the whole process of him being crucified that Friday. So the disciples who followed Jesus had painted him in a box. The religious leaders who knew about him coming, who knew he was the Messiah, painted him in a box. But the whole Jewish nation, his own people, had painted him in a box. See, historically, my nation had been oppressed for a very, very long time. We used to be the powerhouse of the Middle East. Man, we had kings, we had an army, we had the power of God. Nothing could come against us. People would come up against our walls and we would just push them away. Somebody come on our land, we'd go out and attack them and kill them and push them out of the way. Until we got the big head. Thinking we could do it ourselves. Thinking we didn't have to really follow God anymore. Power has a tendency to do that, doesn't it? You give somebody enough power, they'll think they're God. But I think in a way, maybe we thought that. But anyway, we quit listening to God. We quit obeying God. We became like the Pharisees, casting judgment. People began paying off judges for court cases. People began taking advantage of the poor. Prophets began to preach good messages instead of messages of God's discipline is coming. And God took care of that. First, he split us into a nation of two, a northern and southern kingdom. Then he took the northern kingdom and put them in exile, and they didn't exist anymore. And about 120 some odd years later, he took the southern kingdom and did the same thing. And for about 75 years, our nation did not even exist. But God was merciful. Even though we had been oppressed by the Assyrians, even though we had been oppressed by the Babylonians, he used the Persians to allow us to come home and rebuild our city. And we rebuilt Jerusalem. And we rebuilt the temple. But yet, we never became that nation we were in the past. Because see, from that point to even to the day when Jesus entered Jerusalem, we were under oppression. To this time today, we were under Roman oppression. We had never been that powerhouse we were in the past. We never became our own nation. We never became that great military power, that great economic power. We always seemed to be ruled by somebody else. Because of that, you know what most people were looking for? My people were looking for an earthly king. Someone who would come and push those opposing forces out of here. Somebody who would raise our nation up again to be a great and powerful nation of the world. Somebody who would make us great again. We would have kings. We would have a military power. We would have economic power. He had the power to do it. If he could raise the dead, surely nobody could kill us in a battle and keep our soldiers dead. He had the power. Even if we didn't have food, he could reproduce food and give it to us. He had the power. Even if we got sick, he could come and heal us right then and there in the middle of war. He had the power. Even if storms came and kept us from fighting, he could calm the storm so we could continue to fight. He had the power. But Jesus broke that box too. See, he did not come to be an earthly king as much as we desire. No, he didn't come to fight. He came to save. No, he didn't come to kill. He came to heal. No, he didn't come to oppress. He came to unify. He came to build the bridge back between all humanity, not just us. He used us as the place to start, but to build that bridge back to God that had been broken so long ago in the garden. That's why he came. And I hate to say this, but those very people who are singing praises and blessing to Jesus because Jesus, you're going to save you, are the same ones on Friday morning screaming, crucify him, kill him. Why? Their boxes had been broken. Oh, before you cast judgment on the disciples, before you cast judgment on the Pharisees, before you condemn the crowds of Jewish people that day, let me ask you this. How have you put Jesus in a box? When Jesus leads you to that place that's very unfamiliar to you, when Jesus leads you to a group of people that's unlike you, when Jesus leads you to a place that may be risky and feel uncomfortable to you, do you go and obey him, or do you turn and run away? Because see, if you turn and run away, you have painted Jesus in a box of which he will be real quick to break. How do you view Jesus working with those who follow him who are not like you? Another nomination or denomination. How about another group of church down the road? How about a people who may worship a way different than you? How about a people who may use a different translation of the Bible than you? Different worship music, different worship style, different way of preaching, different way of teaching. When Jesus begins to use them and bless them, do you become jealous? Even though God is working there? Do you think God can only work through people like you and not other people? Not people who worship a different way than you? If you think God can only use people like you, worship like you, read the same Bible you do, then you put Jesus in a box and he's going to break it. Do you think Jesus is only for America? Do you look and condemn those who made a different nationality or race than you? Do you think Jesus can't use them to spread his message in this world? See, if you do, you are putting Jesus in a box, just like the Pharisees. You're sitting in judgment, a place where you don't belong. Only Jesus belongs. And he is going to break your box. So the question before you today is this. Here on this Palm Sunday, Triumphant Entry Sunday, is this. How do you paint Jesus in a box? And when, not if, when God confronts you with that, will you deal with it, or will you run away because your box has been broken? Let's pray.